Thank you very much, Timothy Yusuf, for that background report. And we already have our guest seated in the studio. And just let me introduce our first guest here, Ambassador Bolaji Akiremi. He is the Director, Foreign Service Reforms and Innovation Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Akiremi, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
All right, good to have you. Also joining us here is Dr. Ken Okahoa. Is the President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Dr. Okahoa, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, also joining us for the conversation via Zoom all the way from Lagos is Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise and former DG, LCCI. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, good morning. So let's look at these U.S. tariffs, which the U.S. government has said that the aim is to address trade imbalance, promote domestic manufacturing and assert economic sovereignty. Ambassador Akeremi, what's your take on these tariffs? Let's have your view on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, trades are usually instruments of foreign policy and take care of local needs. So it takes care of two things. So U.S. under President Trump is using this instrument in a very unique manner that will attract international attention and that require international participation. As you know, post-Second World War, trade has moved into multilateralism, whereby we have the WTO and we have a rule-based multilateral institutions. What is currently going on is unilateral, and therefore it's affecting U.S. relations with so many other countries. But in actual fact, it's within its sovereign right as a country to determine the course, the trajectory they want to go. What is rather surprising to people since 2017, when President Trump first came to power, was that this was without consultation and disregard for even those who are traditional partners and allies of the United States. Trade, as we have seen now, and as is within, has become a weapon in the hand to emphasize his position for America first. But we must know that there is no country is an island. And no matter how powerful you are, you need others. But you see, this is psychological. It's trying to really demoralize people to the extent that they will submit. So those who put him in power are quite happy because this is what they wanted him to do. We must understand the local politics in America, and we must know that America always wants to assert itself as number one country. But the entire world now have to rise up to it. And this is also, it's not just a warning, but I think it's a wake-up call for nations like Nigeria, who are giants in their own right, but who have been punching below belt. So that from this moment, we know that there might continue to be Trumps coming in different parts of the world. Everybody for himself, God for us all. So we are in the era of realism in international relations. And this goes not just into trade, but into every aspect. So when you go cap in hand and you continue your loose and very dynamic relations and domestic policy, this is what you have. You go into panic mood, and your people are going to become second-class citizens. This is now time for Nigeria to stand its feet and become a trade hub for Africa, a trade hub for developing countries. A country of almost 250 million people cannot be treated shabbily and with so much potential. So this is the time now for us to realize that we have slept for so long. We need to wake up. We need to wake up not just by mouthing it, but by concrete. And this requires cooperation of citizens. The president is trying, because him being a businessman, has told the line of capitalism, and that means we have to do something to get something. Nothing venture, nothing gain. But while you are doing that, there is no country that is entirely and completely capitalism. You still have to support ventures by people. But this time we have to stop corruption. One of the bane of underdevelopment in Nigeria is that money allocated for purposes are never used for it.
All right, Ambassador, of course, we'd hear your views on all of that and, how we can actually wake up, like you have said. Many thanks for your opening comments on this particular issue. Very striking very striking statement that you made. Everybody for himself, God for us all. And it looks like that's the position Nigeria must, really take seriously. Now time to get to Dr. Okoha. First and foremost, I'd like to hear your impression, when the announcement was made first. How did you feel about it? What are your thoughts about this tariff?
Well, thank you very much. I want to start by saying that this was not unexpected. The whole world ought to have been prepared for this kind of shocker, knowing the promises that Trump made to his people before assuming the office. That's pre-election. And his America First ideology, the concept, is being implemented. So it's not a shocker. The second thing that came to my mind is that in his own way, he's being patriotic. And to many Americans, he's also being patriotic. In the sense that he also wants to dig into that America First policy. Getting more for America. Even though this, concept of tariff, technically, for some of us in trade, we know that it works like a two-headed snake. The third thing that came to my mind is that, look, well, many countries have also used this before. My own country, Nigeria, has used something like this. It may not have been tariff, but a kind of non-tariff destabilization. I'm sure you know that for close to 2 years, Nigeria closed her borders against other West African countries. No consultation, nothing, not following the rules, the ECOWAS rules. Some of us supported, actually, that you needed something like this, but you needed to also go within, along the processes enshrined within the ECOWAS protocol. And that was not done. And, well, government at that time, government of Nigeria that slammed that border closure, told us that it did it for Nigeria first. And this is exactly what Trump is doing. Even though it also backfired on us. Because investments were lost. Whose investments? Nigeria's own investments. In trade, in transportation, in the banking sector, financial sector, and all of that. Investments were lost. Today, where is the report? Who tells us what happened? What were the implications? What are the consequences? We do not know. So, it's not alien. Number 4, rather, is that tariff is allowed even at the multilateral level where all of us belong, at the WTO. And one of the rules of the WTO says that you can use this as an instrument to regulate your economy. Yes. It's allowed. You can also use it in another frame to regulate investments. Some countries use it to bring in investors who were hitherto exporting into their country. And then they will tell you, okay, we want you right now to relocate and come in here so that you don't meet tariff again. But I'm looking at how prepared we are. Did we not envisage this? within the context of all that we have been signing and where we belong and all the things that have been going on at the democratic level, did we not envisage this? While we are negotiating AFCFTA and all of that, did we not envisage that this will come at a time? And then if we did, are prepared? Are we? And of course, Trump has said, now, come on, I slap you, you wake up. And then suddenly he says, okay, pipe blow. For you, I'm not targeting you, but are we going to sleep? Good enough. During the introductory, remarks, the federal government has set up
A committee.
a committee. Okay. Thumbs up. But that's a bit late. Thumbs up. But that's a bit late. Number one, we ought to have had surveillance, economic surveillance, tilted towards trade by now. Two, we ought to have had buffer that will protect our non-oil exports, which has for some time now been on a kind of gradual increase. Courtesy of AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. For over 25 years, we also need to ask ourselves, what have we as a country gained? AGOA provided and provides free duty, tariff-free exports. How prepared have we been? What have we gained? Is it now that tariff, 14% tariff or 10% was announced, that everybody now starts hustling up and down? What have you been doing for 25 years, I ask? Let me shock you. Ethiopia, as a country, has been under ban on AGOA since 2020 because of human rights related issues. Of course, you and I know. America said no, under human rights processes, you are therefore banned, excluded from AGOA. But Ethiopia sat up. They foresaw what was coming up. And they looked at the sector that will give them what they want. And that sector is textile and apparel. Ethiopia now started preparing, even before the coming of Trump. And they targeted 27% of, that they're going to get the 27% of all AGOA on textiles. And they've been doing that. So they are under tariff. We are not under tariff. We are tariff-free. But they have planned this. As I speak to you today, Kenya, Lesotho, Madagascar, I'm mentioning all of these countries. Go and check your records. Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Ghana, and Ethiopia. These are countries, 8 of them have had these committee set up at technical level, at steering high level, meeting on the consequences of this tariff. Just 2 days, some of them 2 days after the tariff was announced. Where have we been? What have we done? I know the beauty of what all of these things also present is to show us our vulnerability. You don't have a national carrier that will move your goods straight. I move my goods today to the United States. It will go through Ethiopian airline and it will slip over in Addis Ababa. When they like, they will send it. If this is perishable items, of course, non-oil, majority of them are agro-based. And I can mention cashew. These are non-oil exports that have been doing well over time now. Lead products. You have, some of these processed food items that Nigerian women are now doing, and the markets are doing well over there. So these items are vulnerable. Their shelf lives are very low. Short. And so, for Ethiopia, for South Africa, for Egypt, for Morocco, for Tunisia. All of these countries, Kenya, they have national carriers that will move the export immediately, cargo straight. Under that one day, 24 hours, their goods are there.
Okay.
Ah.
All right. Thank you so much for your opening remarks there, Dr. Okwaya. Let's go to bring in Dr. Muda Yusuf now. Let's have your view on this tariff, and also, do you think we're prepared, just like they said that we are not actually ready for it? And what impact will it have on our economy, in particular trade and investment?
Thank you very much, and good morning once again to the ambassador and my friend Ken Ukoha. Well, there are two levels of impact of this Trump tariff issue. There is the direct impact, there is the indirect impact. Now, the direct impact will have to do with our export exposure to the United States. Don't forget, this is essentially about exports to the United States, because what the regime wants to do is to correct the trade imbalance between other countries and the United States. And the good thing about it is that our vulnerability has been a bit limited, in the sense that most of our exports are actually oil and gas. Between 85 to 90% of our export is oil and gas. And Trump, in his pronouncement, has said that energy products are exempted. So that means 90% of our exports, even to the United States, have been exempted from this. So we are left with the 10%. And of the 10%, maybe just about a quarter or even less, I'm talking of non-oil export now, actually has its destination the United States. So I'm saying all of this to show that in terms of direct impact on bilateral trade between us and the United States, it is not so significant, because oil and gas products have been exempted, and oil and gas accounts for close to 90% of our exports. The second direct impact will be the imported inflation from the United States. We have businesses that import from the United States. Obviously, this Trump tariff will have some effect on inflation domestically in the United States. So for businesses that import from the United States, we are likely to see an increase in their cost of imports, whether it is finished goods, whether it is raw materials. So at that level, we are likely to have some negative impact for countries that are importing from the United States. But let me also say up front, because of all the issues and the pushback that has happened on this tariff, we all know that Trump has suspended the reciprocal tariff for 90 days to allow for some negotiation and all of that. But he has retained the flat 10%, which he said every country must pay. But anything above that has been suspended for 90 days. And again, because of the pushback and the effect even domestically, both to domestic investors in the US and to the citizens of the US, Trump has lifted even the special tariff on China. So that means even President Trump is feeling the heat, although he may not want to admit, he's feeling the heat, because this policy is having some significant backlash on his own economy. So even the sustainability of this tariff regime is in doubt. You can see that they have been going back and forth, creating all sorts of inconsistencies and creating a lot of uncertainties in the global economy. In terms of indirect impact, the indirect impact will be the impact on the global economy, because there's a big risk that what Trump is doing is going to create a major issue at the global level. It's going to slow down the global economic growth. And once that begins to happen, we have a bigger vulnerability in that, because once the global economy is slowing down, it will affect commodity prices. And here we are heavily reliant on oil and gas for our foreign exchange. So that is a major vulnerability. And that is what brings me to the point that Ken and the ambassador were saying about the need to diversify. Our diversification is extremely, we are still too dependent on oil and gas for our export earnings. So that is very critical to reduce vulnerability. So the bigger impact on us is the impact on the global economy. Today now, crude oil price is about $64. A few days ago, it came down to close to $60. Our budget benchmark is $75. So you can imagine the impact of that, even on our budget, the impact on our foreign exchange, the impact on exchange rates. So these are things, bigger issues that we need to worry about, about the impact of that. And of course, there's also the risk to our foreign exchange inflows. Because each time we have this kind of issues, the risk of portfolio reversals is also very high. Because we are likely to see high inflation in the United States. When we see high inflation, what we follow, led by the US Fed, is likely to be high interest rates. And when you have high interest rates in the US, you are likely to affect portfolio flows to the emerging economies. So that may affect our portfolio flows. That may lead to reversals of portfolio flows. And that will have an impact on our foreign exchange. And you can see what is already happening even to the exchange rate over the last 1 or 2 weeks. So these are bigger things that we need to worry about. Of course, there are opportunities as well. Because this situation will create opportunities for new markets, to create opportunities for new trade partners. Because people are now beginning to lose confidence in relationship with the US, which of course is the largest economy on the continent. So there may be new opportunities now for our investors, to have, more partners with better conditions, in China, in Asia, in different parts of the world. So it's also an opportunity for us to double down on our efforts on domestic trade within the continent. I'm talking of the after. Because it's a lesson for us to look more inward, so that within the continent we can do a lot more to strengthen trade within the continent, which of course we have been doing, but we have not been moving fast enough. So these are some of the views that I have, perspectives on what is happening with this Trump tariff.
Thanks, Dr. Yusuf, for your comments. Well appreciated, and you've highlighted some very significant points in your comments. Let's get back to Ambassador Akinremi now. Listening to Dr. Yusuf talk about, first and foremost, the fact that the budget is, the benchmark for crude is $75, and now. What do you think Nigeria can do in the immediate? I'm just thinking, because this is, besides the long-term impact of this, there's the short-term impact, that we're already feeling at the moment. What do you think Nigeria can do in the immediate, to be able to, deal with this, just so that we're stable, we're not shaken, by all of this?
Well, the first thing to recognize is that the government already foresaw this. I don't subscribe to the fact that we've not done anything. You can see that we are not really panicking. Possibly that's why you've not seen much of the movement. You see, for things like this, emergency arrangement don't work, because it requires a long time for those things to fester and for them to blossom. Whether you set up a committee now, it will not stop what Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is doing, because they have the role in this. It will not stop what Foreign Affairs is doing in terms of negotiation. And this is the time for us to push for fairer deals for developing countries. And this we are doing. We also need to increase our role in the WTO or in trade governance. Because, yes, we have a Nigerian as the DG, but that doesn't really represent us enough. We need to increase our voice now. Fourthly, we need to continue diversifying just as we're doing. But you see, in terms of energy, the YSA government probably started this with Dangote in our continent and what it has started doing. The shock wasn't so much. So we have to give that credit to the successive government that have encouraged this type of production in Nigeria. But more importantly at this time, we have to get to the grassroots. You see, and we have to standardize our product. We couldn't take great advantage of AGOA because a lot of the goods were being rejected. But I think Standards Organization now has come up to realize this, and all of these are being packaged very well. We need a concerted effort. We need to work within ourselves to know that this is our goal, this is what we are targeting. The private sector, and I'm very happy this morning to be on this show with practitioners, I would say. The two of them are well known for the roles they have played. Now, we are the part of regulator, and at the same time, we are activists. Activists in the sense that we are the ones that are in the forefront, either in those trade organizations or those international organizations where negotiations take place. So, but now we need to coordinate. We need to know, the direction we're going. Like when we were negotiating after, there was this agreement between Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the government side, and we have to step down. We almost lost that, what's supposed to be our area, because we didn't quite move at the right time. But at this time now, we must continue to suspect that there will continue to be disruption in the international system. It is part of promises that politicians make, and they want to effect it, and it affects other parts of the world. So for us in Nigeria, we need to cooperate with government now. Our youth need to be up and doing. You see, we do over almost 500 million export of hibiscus to Mexico. A majority of it is done by youth. I have seen them, I know them. And there are other crops. Nigeria is the exceptionally blessed country of the world. All we need now is coordination. And government need to also put money, into some of these things and make sure that those who are coordinating them are doing well. But we must give credit to this government. Look at what has been done in terms of Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock. But I like what Mr. Muda said. Even though we have 90%, oil and gas,
Yeah.
but it is still of substantial value, even though it's not affected. But the fact that the price will still crash, I'm sorry, that may look, because these policies will have impact on production. And once production is affected, the quantum, particularly in China, the quantum of energy that will be required will drop. And you that you are exporting it is going to affect you. So what we need to do now is that while we focus on diversification of our export, we also need to diversify where we export to. And this we're already doing. With this government, we have increased our relations with Middle East and Asia. Now, there's huge population in those part of the world. Our focus has always been through the Western country, Europe and all of that. It's still good we maintain that. But we need to open new flanks. We need to have new friends, okay? And we need to coordinate very well.
Do you think that this tariff will impact our trade relations with the U.S.?
Oh, it's already impacting it. You see, because, once pronouncements are made, people start acting on it.
So what diplomatic moves should be used to address the impact?
We are working at both levels, bilateral and at multilateral level.
Okay.
And our mission is also being enhanced And of course, there is consistent briefing to our representatives, and direction is being given on where we belong. Of course, while we cannot stop President Trump or America from their own domestic policies, we also have a right to resist, and we have a right to also show the direction we want to go. All right? Even though I say all country for themselves, it's a way of telling us that we are also sovereign, and we have a right to determine the trajectory we want to follow. And this we are doing. This, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is on top of his game. Trade is part of foreign policy because of economic diplomacy.
All right, many thanks, Ambassador Akinremi. Let's get to Dr. Okoha now. You know, listening to Dr. Yusuf earlier, he was talking about the fact that this would open other vistas, I mean, other markets. People will begin to look away from the U.S. and look at you know, how they can, you know, relate with other markets in terms of trade. For Nigeria, do you really think that there are other markets we can begin to look at, you know, outside of the U.S.? I'm just thinking, is it possible for many African countries to do without the U.S.? And for Nigeria specifically, what other opportunities do you think we should be looking out for at this point?
All right. I strongly believe that the market space is so wide and many yet untapped. And I'm carefully using that word, untapped. And I want to give you an instance. Last 2 years, we set up a modern abattoir, a modern meat factory here in Abuja. Of course, many people do not know. I own that place. And then the Arab countries, UAE, Saudi Arabia, they came visiting the Ministry of Trade and Investment.
Okay.
Also went to the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, they wanted about, Saudi Arabia wanted about 7,000 halal slaughtered goats daily. I mean, daily. 7,000. They came to a meat factory. And we said, we don't have the capacity to do 7,000 on a daily basis. Our capacity is about 500. Where did they go to? It was a big issue. The ministry said, okay, we will see how to support you to expand, since this is the only modern meat factory that has been identified in Nigeria. And till today, we have not gotten any discussion over this. And these people are writing regularly. Now, it shows you the level of market opening out there. Oman also came in to the show. Now, but let's get back to where we are. Within us, surrounding us, West Africa is made up of 15 member countries and now 12. Because 3 have,
Exited.
Well, but if you look at the tabulation of the population market share, West Africa is about 466.6 million people. United States current population is about 346 million. Within West Africa, which is our next door neighbor here, back door.
It's a bigger market.
Very huge market, but dominated by foreign elements. What are we doing? Charity, they say, begins at home. What have we done to conquer those markets? What has government done? I'm sorry, I'm being a bit.
No, go ahead.
To also create some surveillance mechanism that identifies sectors that we should win. These are things. Because it is that surveillance that will help the private sector to say, this is where my arrow, the dart of export, will hit. That's number one. Number two, strategically, we've been talking since, in fact, I did In 1989, when I was writing a thesis on regional integration and regional law, we all hammered on diversification of the economy, diversification of the economy. From that time till today, we are still talking about diversification of the
On
economy.
paper.
On paper. On paper. Sometimes, if I bring out that, I will laugh and I say, look, what a country we are, what a people, including myself. What have we done to diversify? I talked about the apparel sector, the garment, textile sector, which is a place, a point, a sector that Nigeria holds a big flag. But countries like Lesotho, Madagascar, Mauritius, they are winning. In fact, if you look at the 6 countries exporting more on AGOA to this same United States market now, Madagascar, Lesotho, Kenya is number 1. Ghana, behind us here. Then Ethiopia, that's on the ban. And then Morocco. If you look at them, you can't find Nigeria. But go out there in the United States. Once you wear a Nigerian attire, look at how gorgeous you are looking. Everybody is admiring you. But do you know that these countries are now copying Nigerian styles and taking over a market that belonged naturally, traditionally to us? What a shame. You know why? Because the environment is quite conducive for them. Let me look at 2 areas that we need to also explore. One is the area of power when we're looking at diversification. 2 is the area of transportation when we want to diversify. I don't see why, if you look at it today, I was talking with a friend yesterday, and I said, look, the rail sector that the previous administration started with, and we felt, yes, this will boom trade, the distribution of this thing appears to have been abandoned. And we're looking at bogus going into, I don't want to go into that politics, but look at what we can do for ourselves. We had some remedies. Number 1, let's also have a parliament that looks away a bit from politics and discusses economy. It will help us. Number 2, let's also look at states. Not everything should be on the government, on federal government shoulder. States are there. The Aba is in a state. Newi is in a state. Onitsha is in a state. Lagos is in a state. Ibadan is in a state. Kano is in a state. I am mentioning these productive, highly productive areas where, if care is not taken, jobs are going to be lost, courtesy of indirect effects of
the tariff
setting. And we shouldn't also sit down now because the thing has been waived for 30 days. No, it is even a time to jolt yourself, propel yourself to action. And I think also that we must begin to look beyond the committee that has been set up by the federal government. What is going to happen between the committee and the technical side and the practical side of history, which looks at the private sector, who are supposed to be the purveyors, the implementers of whatever the outcome is? There should be that kind of interministerial coordination, number 1, and then public-private sector collaboration to hit the bull's eye. And this is where we can now begin to make gains in other markets beyond America.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ken, for your contribution there. Let's bring in Dr. Muda Yusuf now. Dr. Muda Yusuf, we're looking at other options now, available for Nigeria besides the U.S. market. And how can we create opportunities, to channel our exports so as to help our country's economy?
Well, Dr. Ken Ukoha had elaborated extensively on that, and I agree with him fully. You see, export is about competitiveness, just like any other business. And if you really want to make an impact, even if you have opportunities, just as he said, we had opportunities in AGOA, Africa Growth and Opportunities Act. Since 2000, we are talking 25 years ago. It was under Bill Clinton that AGOA was put in place. And what AGOA meant was that all African countries were free to bring in their products to the United States, free of duty, no import duty at all. That was what AGOA was all about 25 years ago. As a country, we didn't have much to show. And just as Ken said, smaller countries like Mauritius, Ethiopia, some South Africa, Botswana, and all these other countries, Madagascar, took great advantage of it. We didn't take advantage because of competitiveness issues. Because exporters, like other domestic investors who are in production, are going through a lot in terms of competitiveness. And if you are not competitive, even if you have opportunities in the market, you cannot take advantage of the opportunities. So it's about competitiveness in price and competitiveness in quality. Those things are very critical and they are very fundamental. They are as well very fundamental even to all this talk about economic diversification. You can see now that it is more profitable to operate in the services sector than to operate in the production sector. Go and look at the financial statements of operators in all these different sectors. You will see a big difference. And yet we need to build this capacity for production. That is what Trump is suffering now. That's what the United States is suffering. But it's an illusion to think that you can change that overnight. You can't. It's a process, it's a journey, it's a marathon. You need to build the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, the financial infrastructure, the regulatory environment, all these bottlenecks in the exporting process. All of these things need to be removed. Because one thing we don't lack in Nigeria is entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs that are very creative, very innovative, very energetic, very hardworking. But we need to create the environment. So that is very, very important. And this should happen across all sectors. I mean, we have been making a few efforts in the area of services, ICT, creative industry, and all of that. But when it comes to production, it's a completely different ballgame. So the government needs to do a lot to support infrastructure that supports production. That's extremely very important. That is the only thing we are asking for. Yes, we are asking the private sector to come into infrastructure and all of, but there's only so much the private sector can do in terms of infrastructure provision. Infrastructure provision is a heavy lifting that countries need to put in place to support the private sector. That is what is happening in China. China has one of the best infrastructure globally. They are one of the best logistics. So it doesn't stress the producer. That is why they are dominating the world. And if anybody thinks that this can be changed overnight, the person must be dreaming. Because they have been doing this for decades. So we need to follow that model. Secondly, we need to worry about the immediate shocks that this very thing is going to impose on us. That is why the government has set up the committee, which the ambassador referenced. We need to look at how we can go back to the drawing board and look at our 2025 budget and begin to look at how this will affect our revenue, how this will affect our foreign exchange assumptions. Because these assumptions are going to change. And if your assumptions are changing, then all your projections in terms of revenue and expenditure need to change so that we don't create another problem down the line. I'm talking of macroeconomic problems. Problem of high deficit, problem of another high inflation rate, problem of volatility in the currency. So both the central bank and the fiscal authorities, of course, needs to be engaging very seriously now, because we need to be very proactive so that we don't have this kind of shocks. Then thirdly, it's about proper economic integration. ECOWAS has been in place since 1975. That's about 50 years. How much progress have we made? Many of the economic blocs that are doing well today, many of them came decades after we set up ECOWAS. But as we speak, and just as what Ken said, we are still struggling with proper integration framework, even at the level of ECOWAS. And if you don't get it right at the regional level, you'll have to struggle to get it right with the African Continental Free Trade Area. So we need to commit properly to the protocols. As I'm talking to you now, if you talk to exporters who are exporting within the sub-region, in spite of all this free trade thing that is on paper, in spite of all this ETA, that's trade liberalization scheme that allows you to move your product once it is registered under the scheme freely, exporters are facing a lot of problem at Benin Republic, at Togo, a lot of levies, they call it transit levy, security levy, all sorts of levies. Sometimes up to close to 5 million, 10 million per container. These things are frustrating economic integration. So the leaders in the sub-region should also commit to proper integration. And the political leaders, even on the continent, you can see that we are not moving as fast as we should move. With respect to the African Continental Free Trade Area, it's extremely very slow. Of course, we have done some symbolic exports under the Guided Trade Initiative. We export some containers of, few containers of some goods and all of that. There was a lot of celebration around it. But after that, what has happened? So we need to commit a lot more to remove obstacles to trade within the sub-region at the continental level, and this is a political thing. We are not taking it seriously enough, and that is why there is so much violation of the protocols with impunity. There are some goods now that cannot go to Benin Republic. For instance, cement. They will tell you that, no, we don't want you to come and create problems for our industries here who are producing cement. This is in spite of the protocols that we have signed. So please, ambassadors should also help us in this, to communicate with the right authorities to ensure that at the regional level, there is better commitment to the protocols that we sign, so that the protocols are not just academic. So let me there, so that, thank you.
Ambassador wants to respond to you, but I'm sure that will be after the break. But I want to stay with you quickly. You talk about immediate shocks. You talk about the effect on revenue and foreign exchange assumptions and all of that. Can you speak to us about how this situation will affect the cost of living in Nigeria, particularly for low-income households?
You see, anything that affects the exchange rate affects the cost of living, because we're in an economy that is highly sensitive to exchange rate movements. In the last few weeks, exchange rate has moved from 1,550 and so on. It's now over 1,600. If that trajectory continues, you begin to feel the impact in the market. Because those who are in the business of either production will now begin to adjust prices. So the exchange rate sensitivity is the most important. And I must commend the CBN. The CBN has been doing a lot, at least in the past 1 year, to stabilize the exchange rate. But again, they can only go as far as our reserves can support. So we are very vulnerable, the citizens are vulnerable to exchange rates. Then if revenues are dropping, fiscal deficit is likely to increase. If fiscal deficit increases, it creates problem of inflation. So that is another effect. Those things affect the common people because the greatest issue, challenge that the common people are facing is the cost of living, the purchasing power of the people. And exchange rate movement affects it, inflation also affects it, energy prices affects it, transportation costs affects it. And all of these things are rested on the quality of the macroeconomic environment, which these developments can create. But if you manage it well, the impact will not be so pronounced on the citizens.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muda Yusuf. We'll take a break now. When we come back, Ambassador Akiremi will respond to some of the issues raised by Dr. Yusuf. Stay with us.
All right, many thanks for remaining with us. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. And our guests are still very much with us discussing the U.S. tariffs and the Nigerian economy. But just before we continue with the conversation, of course, let Ambassador Bolaji Alade Akinremi respond to some of the comments made earlier before we went on the break. It's important to let you know that this is breaking, by the way. Just reaching us indicates that electricity supply has been restored in Bayelsa and parts of River State following the reconstruction of vandalized 4 transmission towers along Owerri-Ahoda line. All right, so that's cheering news to those who, have been in a blackout. All right, so let's get back into the conversation. And of course, Ambassador Akiremi, you'd respond to, all that has been said. Quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot, but let me thank Dr. Ken for bringing to our attention what happened when the Saudis visited. And to say that was part of our effort in foreign affairs, but the missing link is that we didn't get feedback from you. Many a times we don't understand the role of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's the only ministry that is the window to the global world. And so whether it's economic matters, medical, whatever it is that is going outside, you have to carry the foreign ministry along. Now, the simple solution to this matter is what Mr. President is already doing to attract investment into the country. What you need now at this point in time is investment. And you need either locally or internationally to boost your capacity. Just about 2 months ago, we were in Namibia, and probably you have heard of MITCO. MITCO does what you're doing, but MITCO get more publicity through their foreign ministry. Why? Because they are aware, and it's entirely a private sector business, but you get a boost when a foreign dignitary visits that country. They'll find a way of taking them to MITCO. And when you listen to what they will tell you, you will almost close your own abattoir in your country and ask that meat be imported from Namibia. Can we do the same with yours? These are things we need to do. Packaging. We are not using what we have very well. And this is why I continue shouting about coordination. We also have realized it in foreign ministry, and possibly that is why my office has just been created. I'm the pioneer director of that department. And what we're focusing on is service delivery. And before we do that, we need to even allow and make people understand what we are capable of doing. You talking now about off-takers. But before you go into this, I need to let you know. Let me give you another example. In the same Namibia, in that country, they are producing dates because their soil is good for it. But the dates they are producing is an investment by UAE. So there are a lot of partnership that we can do, a lot of coordination with our private sector. You know, we need to take advantage of what we have. And this is the major problem we have in Nigeria. We are too blessed. We cannot be talking of hunger. Let me react to what Dr. Muda said. Yes, we are import dependent, but that should be changing now. And government really need to work on that orientation. The National Orientation Agency needs to work on that. Private sector need to work on that. Eat what you produce. When you eat what you produce, there will be less pressure on your foreign exchange. And majority of our people now think it's a sign of affluence by taking imported things, wearing imported
But how
suit.
much can we produce with all the challenges that exist? Security, electricity, I mean, just a plethora of issues.
It's because you have alternative. There are local ways of producing everything, including kaikai. But we spend so much time drinking Glenfiddich dish. We spend so much time, 400,000, 1 million, 2 million, people are buying imported liquor.
Status level.
The status level. There is nothing it offers you other than it make you shock. It's the same thing palm oil will do to you. So let's not let our problem look like we are the only one that have this problem. Why will someone rise up and say if India cannot cannot produce the clothes they wear, let them go naked? Okay? And today, they wear what they produce.
Yeah.
All right? Why must our women use Mary Kay that is not produced in Nigeria? Why they produce in the country that the Mary Kay is made? Why must we wear the Brazilian hair that is not produced in Nigeria? What does it add to you? So there is a lot of psychological rearrangement that we need to make.
Okay.
All right? So that is one on the area of pressure on our foreign exchange. Government has to put its feet down. I served as head of mission in a country called Singapore. They didn't just get to where they are today, but for one man who stood up and said, this is the direction we will go. All right? And they all have to follow. Okay? There will be many more Trumps. Other countries are going to come up with their own policies. If you cannot control your own people and control what you do in your country, there will continue to be external influence. And when the external influence comes, you will be indebted to those countries. We must we must now be firm on discouraging AIDS. Because we are more than sufficient.
Okay.
We are more than sufficient. So when we discuss like this, our nationals are listening. I hope NTA get this kind of things together and send to the authority.
They listen.
This is what needs no. Well, you don't have people in authority always sitting down by television at 8:39. Okay, there are so many things. There might be some aides that are listening, but there should be a regular compilation to help policies and implementation. You see, in the area of implementation, we are seriously lagging behind. And that's why we are where we are. So what we need to do now is that as NTA is doing this, you disburse this to the concerned MDAs and private sector. At the show on so date, these were the area that we think concerns your MDA. Can you consider them for consideration? National orientation is with you. What can we say that we are getting from national orientation? How many people get to know the direction that the national orientation is leading us? We are not criticizing any agency now, but what we are saying is that all hands have to be on deck. Sometimes you think trade or tariffs is only for the people in charge of the economy. No, it's for everybody. We have to change that mentality. We have to change that orientation. And there is no way you can build something on nothing. So when government says, I am putting this down in terms of funding, this is the reason why I'm doing it. And this is the result I expect at the end of the day. and we are monitoring. This is possible. It's done elsewhere.
Okay.
So all the questions they have raised.
No, he said something about the ETLS, that
Yes,
is the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, and there is need for it to be retuned to remove all the obstacles that are hindering, this free trade.
It is still part of lack of coordination.
Yeah,
He has said something very great by saying that a trailer is paying up to 5 million.
yeah.
Now, as part of what will be coming under reforms and innovation in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, will be what we call complaints and compliance. These are things that we are doing quietly, but we need to promote now. Because we don't receive this, we don't know how to challenge our interlocutor. Okay? When we shut down our borders, which Dr. Ken referred to, very interesting. It was, the government might not have consulted them, but there were intelligence that led into that. Okay? So we need our populace to feed us back. We need businesses to feed back government. And foreign affairs may not look to you as part of the component, but it is the major once we are dealing with other countries.
Don't you have feedback mechanism in your industry?
But we cannot be going to every trader to say, what are you suffering? They have a coordination body, okay? There is NASIMA for them. There is NIPSI for small industrialist Nigeria. There is OPS, Organized Private Sector. They have to coordinate all of these things. And I'm saying categorically here that this has not been upgraded, that has not been escalated to our level.
Okay.
All right? So if we need to call a national meeting on some of these things that we are suffering to tie up the loose end, why not? Okay. And I'm challenging NTA to do this so that we can all be together on fighting this, because no particular harm can do it alone, whether the private sector or the government or even banks.
Okay, many thanks, Ambassador.
Let me ask Dr. Ken now. Are there opportunities in this tariff that, Nigeria can take advantage of? Like, are there any opportunities for Nigeria to benefit from this U.S. tariff? Do you see any advantage at all?
Ordinarily, there ought to have been opportunities. It may not be advantages, opportunities. Because when tariff has been hiked, you must also look at the sectors. And that's why I talked about government and surveillance mechanism, economic surveillance too. There are sectors that are particularly focused by Trump. And this is what I also want trade practitioners to understand, the underlying factor. What are those sectors? Vehicles, cars, number one. Machineries and equipment, number two. High-tech manufacturers, number three. And this is within the ICT. Now, if you look at this, it tells you that Trump is not really targeting Nigeria, not targeting African countries.
Small fries like you.
He's targeting
China.
you have mentioned. I didn't want to mention. You have mentioned it. So what do you do? Now, if these items are coming from the Asian tigers, as it were, to them, can you now begin to look at government now, fostering partnerships with China? And by the way, the Chinese president yesterday traveled to Cambodia and Vietnam. Some of us monitor these things just to get
The direction.
the direction. Why did he go there? The tariff meant for Cambodia and Vietnam is not as high as that of China. So there could be re-exportation from these countries. This is wisdom. can we, at this point, if we were affected, let's put our ourselves in the shoe of being affected, being China. What could we do? Why don't we not begin to look at fostering those kind of relationships indirectly, and then using the opportunity to enter the Chinese market, the American market, then EU market, which is right there, and then having discussions with kind of partnerships that will now draw their factories into here. That's what I see as investments. Foreign direct investment capture. Not attraction, capture.
Dr. Ken, I agree with you. And I'm going to repeat what I said on Namibia. I said date, right? Dabino is now being exported by Namibia. But it is the
Saudi
investment. It is the investment of UAE. So what Dr. Ken is saying is that re-export is what they do in UAE.
Okay.
And this is why we are also having, and I must give you an information here. That's why we are having all these negotiations with these countries. Okay? But like I said, we need collaboration and information from the private sector. And we need them to also be part of our negotiating team.
Do you invite them when you are having
Oh, sure.
these issues?
You see, we cannot be inviting individuals.
But the
All right?
association.
The associations. And you know, the organized private sector are 5 arms. I'm not sure whether the Traders Association operates under NASIMA or under what is called NASI, which is small industrialist. Okay? I don't know precisely, but that's why I said we will. But we can also put them on our mailing list, all right? Very vibrant president like this, we can do that. But let us not forget that contiguity is very important. It's very easy for China to go to Cambodia. Most of the investment in Vietnam were from South Korea, all right? Nigeria has to answer its name. You cannot be called the giant of Africa without really being giant in policies and implementation. Those ideas are in books, okay? But we need individuals, organizations, institutions to take them out and implement them. And government must not be overwhelmed.
All right. Yeah, government must not be overwhelmed. Fine point. And, that leads me to my next question as we begin to round off this conversation. And, of course, I'd like Dr. Yusuf to respond to this. We've been talking about what government can do, and all that. But what can the private sector do, in all of this, just so that we can adapt to this tariff and promote economic growth?
Well, for the private sector is ever ready. We have one of the best crop of entrepreneurs globally. We are always looking for opportunities. What the private sector is seeking is the removal of these barriers and the creation of the right environment for them to be able to grow and contribute more to the economy better than what they are doing now. The reality is that an economy gets the kind of investors that it deserves. It is the environment you create that will determine the kind of investment that you will get. The most profitable investment today is in services, just as I mentioned. But we need to support those who are in production. How are you going to compete, for instance? You are borrowing in the bank at 30% interest rate. What kind of production do you want to do? Even for you to access the domestic market is an issue. Because Asian products, Chinese products have dominated the market. So much so that domestic investors are struggling. So the private sector is ever ready. The Nigerian private sector is here. And I must also make this point. You must have some deliberate policy framework to support indigenous private sector. Because it's one thing to, look at our manufacturing space. It's been taken over almost completely now by Asian investors. We have to be deliberate. Because these are investors that have support from their home countries. Some of them are coming here with funds of 0 interest rate from their home country to invest here in Nigeria. While our domestic indigenous entrepreneurs are borrowing at 30%. But I must acknowledge the government has been taking some steps now to better capitalize and improve our development finance institutions. Because there's no way you can get production to thrive if you ask industrialists to go to the commercial banks and be borrowing at 30%. It cannot work. Where are you going to sell the product? That's why many of the exports that we do that is non-knowledge, they are primary products. Because the cost of value addition is extremely very high. The cost of logistics is extremely very high. So there has to be that deliberate effort to ensure that we bring down the cost of production, the cost of financing. And I must also commend the government for bringing back the Bank of Agriculture. You know, I'm told now, at least from what I read, I think about 150 billion has been earmarked. You also need to see a lot more role, a lot more, capitalization for Bank of Industry, Development Bank of Nigeria, and some funds for SMEs, because you cannot expose the real sector to the market environment, to the financial market that is operating under purely market principles. There has to be a moderation, there has to be a calibration of the way we also manage the financial system. So that for sectors that are vulnerable, we give them some concessionary window for financing. You can't borrow money now to go and say you want to either build a house. There's no mortgage system when interest rate is around 30%. So,
Dr. Yusuf, because of time, really, we need to, end this conversation now. But of course, it's a continuous one, and I hope that we'll get to talk about it some other time on Good Morning Nigeria or some other programs that we have on the NTA. We do sincerely appreciate you for joining us. But I think I would like to take the last words from Ambassador Akinremi, just in 30 seconds. What will be your words to Nigerians?
Invest all these, NTA should invest all these very cogent points that are being made by very
That's to
dynamic
NTA,
people.
to Nigerians.
Yes, and to Nigerians, they need to collaborate with their government to ensure that policies are being implemented the way they are designed, and they play their own part.
Okay, thank you,
because the
sir.
citizens are needed.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Ken. 30 seconds.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Within this particular time, there is something urgent the Nigerian government would need to do. And the committee that is set up by the federal government would need to consider this very urgently. Because with what has happened now, China, Mexico, all of them...
We're out of time.
Yes, all of them would be looking for areas where they would dump their goods. We need to look at that very critically and see how to step that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
you.
very much, Ambassador Bolaji Alade Akinremi, Director of Foreign Service and Reforms and Innovation Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Many thanks for being a guest. We do sincerely appreciate your insights. Of course, Dr. Ken Okoha, always a delight to have you, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. Thank you so much for being our guest. And of course, Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise and former DG at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We do appreciate you. It's time to go, but we want you to know that you can now share your comments and reactions with us through our phone line. It's been displayed on the screen, so you can, of course, copy that. And you can only send text messages. The number is 0816-968-8126. I'll take that again, 0816-968-8126. 8126. You can send text messages, your reactions, your thoughts, whatever it is that you want to share with us. Would sincerely appreciate it. So that's Good Morning Nigeria today.
Maybe that will be from tomorrow.
Well, from today, of course. From today, I mean, we could still read and implement.
Right.
Thank you so much. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I'm Ademola Adio. You do have a lovely day.